Today we are looking at this Sega on this. That's right, a plethora of Sega games on the gorgeous original Xbox. Side note, I still haven't got my crystal fixed yet. I am getting it fixed soon. I am missing it thoroughly. But I digress. There are lots of Sega games on the original Xbox and I've siphoned down 10 with a bonus 11th. I think if I've got my maths right, I'm panicking now that that's actually not right. There's a lot of Sega games on original Xbox that I've picked out, but I've missed out some key titles as well, which will also give an honourable mention at the end. So without further ado, let's dive in to my 10 that you need to play on your OG Xbox.
Crazy Taxi 3! High Roller!
Climb into the cab and crank up the offspring because we are back with some Crazy Taxi 3, which does stay pretty original to the original on the Sega Dreamcast, albeit the graphics are Xbox slightly tweaked graphics. I had a lot of fun playing this beauty. In fact, not just the third, but mainly the first, of course. And this does stay true to everything about the original. You literally picking up passengers and driving through the city, dropping them off, going fast, dodging cars, having lots of fun and hoping to get the most monetary reward from your passenger. It does get a little bit frantic at times, and I'm not saying that this is the best Crazy Taxi game that you need to go and play now, but I do think it holds everything that was fantastically amazing about the first, again, even down to the repetition of the tunes from time to time. I'm not going to lie though, I did like the Crazy X mode where you're doing weird things like this, and it just does get a little bit frantic. Now, of course, there's that lovely addition of being able to jump and drift and just do all the crazy stuff that holds true to the name of Crazy Taxi. But there's not really much more I can say. I'm pretty happy, to be fair, that this is available on the original Xbox. I think there's a lot of good Sega titles on the OG Xbox, as you are going to see in this episode. I still believe we need a Sega Dreamcast Mini, though. Let me know if you've played this in the comments, and let me know if you too want a Sega Dreamcast Mini. House of the Dead 3 is up next. It can be enjoyed as a single player, or you can do a little bit of couch co-oping as a pair. Now, it wasn't until recently that I actually sat down and gave this some of my time, thanks to Tommy reminding me and suggesting that it existed in a recent Doorway to Darkness retro game hunt. Now, of course, there are lots of twists and turns along the way. Zombies are jumping out from absolutely everywhere, and your agility and your aim need to be significantly good to be good at this. I would say I'm about a 6 out of 10, but I think with a bit of practice, I can really hone in my skills. I think the visuals look great here, and I do feel that this is one of the most arcadey feels in the home. I think I will be investing in the Mad Catz light gun, though. I think that's the best way to do it. Obviously, you can play with a light gun on a CRT. Thankfully, I own one upstairs, but I'm curious to know if you've played this with a light gun or if you prefer to use the controller, and again, it does perform relatively well. So House of the Dead 3, it is available on other consoles as well, but I am thoroughly ecstatic that it is on the OG Xbox. Gather your gang and whip on your inline skates for the sequel of Jet Set Radio. We are in Jet Set Radio Future on the OG Xbox, which very much is the same vein. I mean, why change what isn't broken? Because Jet Set Radio worked really well as you're kind of flying around the city, collecting spray cans, and just having a lot of fun doing it. Now, what's interesting about the whole IP of Jet Set Radio is there's the massive rebellious streak, isn't it? I mean, do you remember those days in the park where you might have took a black marker pen and written your name on a little bit of the wood on the park? Well, it's not quite the same, but it is. Graffiti. You've got to spray over rival gangs' graffiti tags with your own. Again, the concept is really cool, and I think it does tap into my inner child as well as I'm not very good at skating. But you know what? I wasn't too bad just running along the park edge, writing my name, Gem was ear, as we did in the 90s. You still see it from time to time, and it does make me smile. And when I play this, I just can't help but go back to that style of my childhood with the black marker pen in the back burner. It wasn't as cool as Jet Set Radio, but nonetheless, I just can't dissociate from that memory. It's kind of weird. I've never shared that one before, but it does remind me, and it gives me great satisfaction, that dopamine hit when you're thrashing around the streets here and actually spraying those rival tags. It is awesome, and it is available now on the OG Xbox. At first glance, a Togi Myth of Demons might seem like a much calmer game, but as you progress, you find out that it's actually a fast-paced hack-and-slash third-person awesome adventure game. Now, as you can see, you've got the hit markers there. With every hit, you get that kind of counter, and I feel that for me, that was a massive dopamine hit. That was a huge appeal to this, and this is quite a pricey game. It's one that, unfortunately, I don't own in my collection, so you can pay anywhere between £30 to £60, depending on condition and where you obviously buy from. But it's definitely one that I need to kind of reacquaint myself with, because I spent a lot of time with this game when I was at university, and it was my introduction of that kind of faster paced combat stuff that I've grown to love. I mean, if you look at, say, like the Batman games on the 360 and PS3, you know, Arkham City, etc., it's very much that style of combat where it's bang, 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 bang. It's very Devil May Cry-esque. You know, the environment's very destructible. You feel very powerful, and you feel like you genuinely own the gameplay. So that is a huge appeal, and I don't think we get enough love or enough noise for this as a series. So check it out, guys. If you've got 50 quid spare, you need to pick this one up. It wouldn't be right to mention Sega games without talking about Outrun. Now, there are two on the original Xbox. We have Outrun 2, which is definitely the most cheaper alternative, and then we have Outrun Coast to Coast, which for some reason costs an absolute fortune compared to buying it on the PlayStation 2. If anybody can answer the question as to why in the comments, feel free to give us some information. But we're talking about Outrun 2. This is a game that I do own. Like I said, you can get it for between 10 and 15 quid, and it just feels, looks and sounds wicked. Now, naturally, it is important that we drive very, very fast to impress our passenger, but there are, of course, different modes that you can tackle within this. We've got the classic time attack mode, the heart attack mode, which is the more open-ended stuff, and outrun mode, where there are up to 15 stages for you to kind of blitz through in a given time. It can be quite tricky in areas, and I think that sometimes you look at racing games and think, oh, that's going to be really, really easy, but no. Outrun is a game that's been with me since the very, very early stages. I was like, maybe between the ages of 5 and 10 was introduced to Outrun, and it's still very difficult by today's standard, but thankfully it has a massive cult following. And I think I've spoken to some of my live stream viewers that we do need a new Outrun game. I think it's definitely an IP that has a huge fan base that would happily dive back into it. I know I would, but would you? I think I already know the answer. Of course you would. Guys, this is Outrun. You can either go for the more expensive option of Coast to Coast, or you can get a cheaper Outrun 2 on your OG Xbox.
So I'm still toying with the idea on whether or not I need to get Outrun Coast to Coast on the original Xbox, because it's so expensive, it is pretty off-putting, whereas I paid £10 last year on the PlayStation 2. So I do have the game, but the collector in me is like, Gemma, you need it on the original Xbox, darling. So I might let you decide on whether or not it's actually worth it for me. I'm not quite sure, but nonetheless, Outrun 2 definitely whets my palate for some Outrun feisty racing on the original Xbox.
Panzer Dragoon Orta, I think, was a technical achievement for the original Xbox. Especially in those cutscenes, I think the level of detail and, storytelling was just mesmerising back in the day. If I'm brutally honest with you, I'm not a huge fan of the Panzer Dragoon series. Feel free to roast me in the comment section, but but I've always found that there's a little bit too much going on the screen at any one time for me to be able to soak in the environments. I mean, I was never quite sure what I was actually looking at, what I actually needed to do. But I understand that art is art, and I can appreciate art when I see it. And I do think this game, because of its cult following, I think it holds up well on the Sega Saturn. If you play it on the Sega Saturn, that's how I know the series the best. Or if you choose to play on your original Xbox in 2023. So let me know, am I kind of over-egging my own feelings here? Maybe I should give it another go. Maybe I should really give it the time that it needs. But I've never been a huge fan.
We are halfway through. I'm eager to know what your favourite is thus far, but I will say that my favourite is yet to come. I need a few seconds of your time to tell you about channel memberships. If you guys want to become a channel member, click join from the main page or the second link in the description. There are 3 tiers, all with different perks for you if you want to become a team member. Thanks for your time. Let's continue with the video.
Sega GT 2002 was a great game for me, purely because I was terrible at Gran Turismo, and I always found this to be a little bit more of an introductory, easier Gran Turismo, if that makes sense. If you've played it, you'll know exactly what I mean, and that's because the licenses are so much more basic. You don't need to do half the things, it's just like beating certain times on certain laps. So I actually really did enjoy this. The graphics, again, particularly the lighting, I was mesmerised by back in the day. And fortunately for you and me, this is a cheap game to snag on your OG Xbox today. So I'm not going to say much more about this other than thank you for being my alternative Gran Turismo, because I was terrible at it, and this is Sega GT 2002. Sonic Heroes. I absolutely love this game. I think it's very rich in colour, and I think the introduction of having the 3 different teams, Dark, Team Sonic, Team Rose and Chaotix, I mean, all with different powers, all with different abilities such as speed, being able to jump that bit higher, etc, etc. It really did add that different layer and replayability to the game, if that makes sense. I think the cutscenes were really interesting too, and it just capitalised on everything that I didn't really like about Sonic Adventure on the Sega Dreamcast. I thought that was very 2D in its approach. Obviously it's a 3D game, but kind of 2D in its approach. This feels way more fleshed out because there's way more characters, and the premise is very much the similar. Collect lots of rings, make sure you don't lose your lives, beat the bosses. You know, timing is of the essence here, as it is in all of the Sonic games. So this is a really nice game that you can play on many different consoles, but of course this is a video about the original Xbox, so that's why we're bringing it into this gorgeous episode. So I'm sure you'll take a lot of glory in this, and if you haven't played it, you need to bang it on your playlist for 2023. Whilst I definitely prefer Shenmue over Shenmue 2, it was really nice to see the bolstered graphics on the original Xbox, and of course the release of the DVD, which recaps all of the magic of the first game. I think if it wasn't for the graphics, I wouldn't have touched this game on the original Xbox, because the Dreamcast is the home of Shenmue, but I just needed to experience it, and I'm not gonna kid you guys. I do prefer playing Shenmue 2 over the Dreamcast version. Super Monkey Ball Deluxe was my first entry to the entire series. Okay, it was on the PlayStation 2. But I think I prefer the Xbox version. I don't know if it's just me, but the graphics just seem that little bit sharper. The formula is exactly what you would expect. You're in this kind of weird ball or marble, if you would, and you just kind of controlling and navigating the level, collecting things, and it's just a really nice, fun puzzle game with beautiful graphics and very, very nice characters. And I just think the whole thing is a feel-good game, and I think that's really important, that you can have a lot of fun with games like this. So it was really nice, and it came at a time for me when I had I'd moved to a different area in the UK. It was miles from where I was from, and I remember getting this game when I moved to that place. So I was very lonely at the time, so I found a lot of comfort in video games, and this was one of the video games that I played a lot of on my PS2, and it made me feel good. It made me feel like I was home. It made me feel like I needed to keep on gaming. So I owe a lot to this game. So this is a nice game. You can pick it up for about £6-7, pretty cheap, and the box art looks really tasty as well.
My favourite has to be Super Monkey Ball Deluxe, purely because of the nostalgia of how much it entertained me when I moved up to the Lake District way back in like 2005. It was 2004 I moved, I played it 2005, and it really did keep me company on those kind of dark, lull times that we all have. So, and I enjoy the game as well. I think it still looks really good by today's standards. And I didn't like puzzle games until I played Super Monkey Ball. It really kind of had this nice arcadey sound and gameplay, so I thought that was a nice matrimony of the sound being like very arcadey as well as the gameplay. And I love the colour palette. There's just lots of pretty colours, and it's freaking awesome for those reasons. Of course, there are other games that aren't sport titles, such as Headhunter Redemption, Shadow the Hedgehog, really solid titles as well. And I didn't want to kind of give everything other than sport titles here, because I know it's not really going to leave much discussion room in the comment section. So maybe you can recommend your favourite, maybe I've covered your favourite, who knows, but I'm waiting to hear from you, and I'll be favouriting all of my favourite comments, so get right in. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you subscribe and leave a like, and if you're kind enough, chuck this out into the ether with a free share. But for now, I'll see you on Monday's video with lots of shorts to come. Take care. See you soon. Bye.